I got into learning the history of that car design, and then I started going, wait a second, how could I separate myself in surfboards? Why don't I look back in surfing and the sport, and as well as the manufacturing of surfboards, pick that era, go back and try to build surfboards that match that era perfectly. So like period
Awesome
correct.
Yeah.
And then I also had my own surfing, which helped, I go, okay, now I'm going to try to surf these boards just like that era and then I go, I'm going to advance the design. So it was retro, I guess. I hate that term,
Hey, welcome to Car Guy Confessions, brought to you by ARP. I'm Jeff Smith. This is my car buddy Cam Benty and car builder Steve Strope, and we're going to tell you some stories.
Welcome to Car Guy Confessions with Jeff Smith, brought to you by ARP. Remember to go to arp-bolts.com to get all your bolt needs handled. I've got
all
my
your handle needs bolted.
That too. Very nice. I love it. That's right. And I've got the mainstay of our dais here, Mr. Steve Strope of Pure Vision, master car builder. And we have a guest today. We have Tyler Hatzikian, who has many talents, which we're going to learn all about. I'll tell you. You're going to be surprised. Yeah, you're going to be surprised. It's not going to be just car stuff. It's going to be
kind of like Captain Kangaroo.
And Mr. Green Jeans?
Mr. Moose.
That's right. Yeah, you've been busy, haven't you? Okay, all right. But Mr. Steve, how was SEMA? SEMA good?
SEMA was very good. I enjoyed myself. It was nice to see it, for lack of a better term, back up and running.
Nice.
They were, I know, register, they were up 35% from the prior year, and you could see that, especially Wednesday and Thursday. The foot traffic was extremely healthy. It felt like a good show. It had a good buzz. It had good activity. So that was fun and good. And we took a nice little 67 Chevelle up that did well, showed well. We weren't going for any form of award in any way. We just brought a nice car for Dynamat for the guys there who are wonderful hosts to us.
They're buddies of yours.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
But, and let's see, secured a couple of magazine features that everyone will see a little later in Chevy Hub.
Nice.
Stephen Kim's beautiful quarterly book.
Beautiful magazine.
And also Terry McGeehan's Hemmings Muscle Machines will be doing something on the car. So that's always a good week.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Had a good time, got to see all my friends.
As always, it is always a good time. So anything strike you as particularly interesting that you saw at the show? Any cars that you thought were particularly outstanding? Anything that you wish you had built?
No. There's the usual big craziness cars, the over-the-top cars, because that's the SEMA circus. Right. And there was plenty of that. There was some very impressive things, of course. There's no lack of quality up there. Some very impressive builders always bringing it, per se. Ring Brothers, of course.
They won again.
Yeah, they did.
What a
job.
Yeah, they do great stuff.
Great job.
Yeah. Mike and Jim are good friends.
Yep.
Good guys.
Great guys. We need to have them on. Or at least one
we
of
can
them.
do that.
Hear that?
We can
one
do
of
that.
you two.
Well, I understand they're pretty much doing the snow farming thing. We should probably mention that Jeff is not here. Jeff is not here this week because, like we say, he's snow farming. But actually, he will be back. We'll have him on. There's nothing wrong with Jeff. He still likes us. He still likes you?
I think he likes me.
Okay, yes, he does. Yes, he does. But we'll have Jeff back, and we'll have the Ring Brothers on at some point. We'll have a bunch of folks on here. But so that'll be fun. I'm glad SEMA was good. I was not in the country. So
that's right. You were abounding.
That's why my shirt doesn't fit. I had vacation. I had a little vacation there. I was eating my way through. So it was very good.
That's good.
But let's turn to our guest here, Tyler. Tyler is a man of many talents. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate your time to come up here and be with us today.
Hi.
Yeah.
Way over there.
There you go. Bottom line, we're kind of curious about how this all came about because you're actually a surfboard guy.
Yes.
From the roots, that's where you met Marcel. And Marcel was, I guess, the guy who bought your first surfboard.
Yeah, first commissioned surfboard.
That's very cool. Very cool.
What year would that be?
That would have been
1984.
Wow.
1984.
Yeah.
I was in 10th grade.
Yeah, I was in 6th.
I was 28.
You were in 6th grade?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm old. All right.
But how did you get it?
You were carving surfboards in 6th grade?
Yeah, well, Gosh, all my friends had paper routes, and I was helping them with their paper routes. So I had somebody to surf with because we were pretty young and weren't many guys surfing.
Where's this located? Where are we?
So this is in El Segundo, which is next to LAX.
Beautiful downtown El Segundo.
Yes, yeah.
Where the debris meets the sea.
Yep, exactly.
Well, Mattel's there.
Yeah. So, bunch of Fortune 500 companies in El Segundo.
Yeah, it's a beautiful. It's actually a really nice town.
It's
You've never heard that?
No, but that's precious. I like that.
Have you been by there certain times of the week?
Yeah, hung out there a lot.
Yeah, stand back. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, you're right. There are a lot of big companies that are in El Segundo, and the cops there are very entertaining.
Yeah, Red Fox used to have issues with the cops of El Segundo. He talks about it on his shows quite a bit.
In the show, yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Segundo.
Did you know Eddie Paul?
Actually, I got to know him a little bit before he passed away. But you know, he had shops in town. He lived in town, and I knew of him quite a bit.
Yeah.
And
I did a lot of work with Eddie Paul.
Okay.
Eddie Paul was a customizer of note. Do you know Eddie Paul? You ever heard of Eddie Paul? Eddie, yeah. Yeah, you heard it. Okay, we're moving on. Eddie Paul was, he was one of these wacko guys that was.
I feel the blank stare works well.
Oh my God, Eddie was a customizer of note, but he also built all kinds of crazy stuff. He had a shark that he built for Discovery that actually swam with one of the Cousteau sons in it. It was like this shark cage that was articulated, and he did all this stuff, and he built like the sets for Ice Pirates and all these crazy movies. And you'd always go by his place, and there'd be just stupid stuff there. He built the Mercuries for Cobra. Remember the Cobra?
Oh, yes. Stallone's movie.
Stallone's deal.
The Black Merc.
Yes. But the bottom line was he won for Cobra based because Stallone bought himself a 50 Merc. Right. And it was that. So now that needed to be the feature car in the deal, which is probably a tax deal. But anyway, so he ends up building this Merc, and then he builds all these really crappy Mercs that were horrible cars. But all they did was bust them up. But
jumped them.
They jumped them. Yeah, typical deal. It was. I remember them one day. Eddie saying, "Well, I got to fix these cars. I got to put front wheel disc brakes on them." I was like, "Well, why do you got to put front disc brakes on 50 Mercs?" He says, "Because somebody on the movie read something in some car magazine that said front." Probably I did. Front disc brakes are good for repeat stops. So you need front disc brakes. Well, it's just true. So unfortunately, in a movie, they stop for a half hour between takes, so they're pretty cool. So they're really not a big deal. But anyway, bottom line, Eddie was involved in all those things. So Eddie was kind of this guy that introduced me to the police in El Segundo, and he would get away with murder. Yeah, absolute murder.
Did a lot of stuff with fiberglass too.
Yes, very much so. Well, so that leads into your surf projects here, your surf business, which boomed evidently. So how did that all take place? Obviously you're a kid, you're really young, and you're making surfboards.
Yeah. So my dad made my first surfboards when I was a kid, and when he was too busy to build boards for me, I'd go in the garage and pick up the tools. He had a little tool chest, and I'd watched him make a couple boards for me, and started doing it myself when he was too busy. And really all kind of stemmed from, like I was saying, my friends all had paper routes, and I needed somebody to surf with. So I told my parents I wanted a paper route, and they said, "You can't have a paper route. It's going to affect your schoolwork." And I'm like, "Hey, I'm doing all my buddies' routes for them." So when I made my first surfboard, when I was commissioned by Marcel, his mom took us to get materials because we were, of course, too young. When I made that first board, I go, "This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. You can't tell me I can't make surfboards." So that's where it really stemmed as kind of a finger to the parents that you can't tell me I can't do this. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Where it started.
That's very cool. So your father built surfboards?
Yeah, my dad had been around surf shops in the 60s, saw how boards were built, and in the 70s he started building boards for himself, and that's kind of how it got passed down to me. So the technology and the techniques that I used were kind of outdated. They were actually 60s style techniques, because I hadn't been around other surfboard shops. So it was just whatever
stuff like Jeff Ho's.
Yeah. Jeff Ho. Actually,
was he still around when you were doing this?
Yeah, he was kind of
faded out by then.
He was still like
Zephyr.
Yeah, the 70s were he kind of a little more underground at that point, or kind of disappeared a little bit. But he's definitely well known. Of course, in my area, the Venice area. After the POP pier was torn down in the early 70s, mid-70s, early 70s, and that was his kind of place. That's where, after that was torn down, he kind of faded out a little bit. But other people in the Dogtown era, like Craig Stesick, have been real good friends of mine, artists, airbrushers and artists. They are actually now good friends that I've actually traveled to Japan with and stuff. So.
Hey, we'd like to thank our sponsor, ARP-bolts.com. We got a fantastic little backdrop here. They make an outstanding series of bolts, almost anything you would need for engines, chassis, things like that. In fact, we were at lunch today, and a guy asked you about the bolt on the back of your shirt, and and I said, well, it's really about a head bolt. They neck the stem down of the bolt on a small block Chevy head bolt, so the clamp load is even across 3 different head bolt lengths on a small block Chevy. And, so that's the kind of technology that you get out of ARP. And we've all got stories on all that stuff.
For a translation of what he said, call ARPbolts.com.
but the message is that you can't get any better than that.
No, you cannot.
There you go.
Nope.
Excellent.
And then just check them out at ARP-bolts.com. We'd like to thank our friends at InTheGarageMedia.com. They have 3 fantastic magazines. They've got Classic Truck Performance, they have Modern Rotting, and my favorite, All Chevy Performance with Nick, my buddy Nick, is the editor.
Biased.
So,
Correct.
yes, of course.
Yes.
But they're doing print media, which is, of course, our favorite. So
In
Tangible
color and
magazine.
everything.
in color and everything,
Yes.
and you can get your car on the cover of one of those books, which is
Right.
a fun
that's a
deal.
lot.
Great tech.
Great
Written
tech.
by you and others
not always
that are
written by me, but yeah. Yeah.
Not
yeah.
always written by me.
That's right.
Just
So
pick it
check
up and
them out
read it.
at InTheGarageMedia.com, and they're our friends, and they will thank you.
Real big, because I had always done everything start to finish myself, which kind of restricted a lot of my development as far as growing the
So
business.
you're more artist than you are manufacturing.
Yes.
Do you ever do anything with hardwoods like koa, or is it only shaven?
No, it's
fiberglass balsa.
Balsa. I used to bring in balsa wood from Ecuador, and balsa boards are kind of a board that you'd see pre-polyurethane foam. So pre-59 would have been balsa boards. And the techniques of post-war materials, balsa and fiberglass, is what basically built the surfboard industry in the late 40s, early 50s.
Keeping this surfboard and hot rod, do you know Bob Barnes?
Absolutely. Yeah, I made boards for Bob Barnes, actually.
So those of you who aren't going to know this, Bob Barnes had a chrome shop, Vern's, and he's also a well-known guy in the hot rod world as an owner, and been around the inner circles for quite a long time. And he also had his own line of surfboards, very nice boards, actually. So we were actually talking at one point about doing one of my logos on a board and all the rest, and I, of course, never pulled the trigger. So now I got you, so you're stuck doing it. But so that's interesting. There has been, especially because of the Woody surfboard, and there's been those of you who have been reading Rodder's Journal for a long time. He's had at least one the surfer interwoven with the hot rods world especially the 60s, when that blew up with the Beach Boys and all the songs about surfing and all the songs about hot rodding at the same time. They were a very interconnected lifestyle that I, from a farm town in upstate New York, knew all about, read all about, heard all about. So I find that's very interesting. It's very easy to see how you got doing what you did with knowing Bob and seeing how his life was surfboards and hot rods and street cars like that. And I met Bob through the artist Steve Stanford. And of course, again, if you don't know who Steve Stanford is, I'd suggest a Google search. And learn something. But so now we're talking about your 18, 19, 20, 21, 25. You're still manufacturing boards, but they're bespoke, they're handmade, they're per order.
Yes.
So we're not talking volume like Hobie.
No, so the period that I grew up in, the 80s, it was pretty much strictly shortboards. And that's what I was into. And there was a point where, when I turned 16, I started getting into classic cars. So I had a 55 Chevy. I started getting into Tri-5s, which were an easy transition, easy kind of car to get into the hobby, or know. And so once I got that, I mean, I was the only guy in my high school that had a classic car. So I had a '55 Chevy, and other guys had Saabs and other cars of the '80s. And
Saabs,
so, yeah, hey,
sure.
But
customs.
yeah. So I really started studying. I was really into real stock. It was easy to go, okay, what did these cars look like when they came off the line? And as a young kid, I mean, at that time a '55 Chevy was only 35 years old, I think, so it was all about custom, the original colors, knowing all, Harvest Gold and India Ivory on a '55. That was my car. And I got into learning the history of that car design, and then I started going, wait a second, how could I separate myself in surfboards? Well, I'm just going to, I know a lot about this period, mid-50s, car design. Why don't I look back in surfing and the sport, and as well as the manufacturing of surfboards, pick that era, go back and try to build surfboards that match that era perfectly. So like period correct. Yeah. And so I had my skills. I worked my skills where I built boards that looked exactly like that. And then I also had my own surfing, which helped, I go, okay, now I'm going to try to surf these boards just like that era, and then I'm going to advance the design. So it was retro, I guess. I hate that term, but I go, okay, I'm going to make it look like this. I'm going to build it with my own hands. I'm going to surf this style to its highest level, and then I'm going to take it beyond. And when I say take it beyond it, there's an era. So in the period that I'm talking about, it was longboards. By 1968, the longboard was gone. It was a dead deal. So for me, it was really neat to take my surfing, say, to 1968, the equipment that I built myself, and then make it 69, 70, 71 without the shortboard influence, without that transition. So I've actually kind of created, it wasn't just classic or retro to be retro and trendy. It was, I saw a way to kind of create my own history in my industry and sport.
Wow. You've been very successful. I looked at your Instagram. I see a lot of really interesting designs and a lot of stuff, based on automotive, which is very cool. So you've got the 55. What other cars? There was a list that was given. You got a 50 mark as well. Look at that. Look at that. Dropped in there.
Yeah. Well,
following Stallone.
The 55 is something that I started with. I had 55s and 6s. I had a 56 9-passenger wagon that I found in a garage in El Segundo that was actually from a car lot that no longer existed. Came off a lot in El Segundo, which was really cool to have. And then I worked my way into Nomads, 56 Nomads. Owned a few of those. Sold my last Nomad, I think I was mid-20s, I think. And to actually get a 41 Woody that Marcel had turned me on to as his... He goes, hey, there's this, I was driving down this alley in Huntington Beach, and he goes, this guy has a 41 Woody. It belonged to his dad. His dad passed away. He wants to get rid of this. It had a wood kit on it, needed fitting, but all the mechanical, a lot of stuff had already been restored. I sold that Nomad to buy that Woody, built the Woody up, and in my late 20s, sold that Woody along with some other money to put it down on a house. So had my own job since I was 12, made my own money making surfboards. Every penny from surfboards went into hot rods. Hot rods were the piggy bank, sweat equity. It just stayed with me, never got into drugs, so that was always with me. And then I was able to buy a house in my hometown through all that.
Awesome story of sticking to the topic and sticking on the job, and making something that you enjoy, which seems to be a theme that I've heard a couple of times when they talk about you, that do something that you like to do and continue to follow that pursuit to an end. And obviously you've done very well in that regard.
Thank you.
But wait, there's more. Okay, so there's another chapter to this book, a new chapter that comes out of here. So we're doing the surfing thing. We're doing building some hot rods, building quite a few hot rods. It sounds like you were really into it. But you have become this year, just in the last couple of weeks, Rookie of the Year, USAC 360.
Yeah, USAC West Coast 360.
West Coast. There you go, West Coast 360. And sprint car driver. Pretty amazing, huh?
Yeah, that's a lot of craziness.
That is a lot of craziness.
I'm very familiar with sprint car racing.
Are you?
Yeah, familiar enough.
Are you?
Yeah,
Well, here's
you're
a
nuts.
sprint car driver.
You're nuts.
Sprint car driver.
All right,
360s. So tell us about the car. How did that all happen? What's going on here?
Well, going back to even before I built surfboards, I would go to Ascot. So when I was about 6 or 7, I lived about 10 to maybe 15 minutes away from the track at the most. On a good night, when the wind was just right, at my house, I could hear the sprint cars because there's no muffler rule back then. It was zoomies, anything. You could run anything back then. So you'd hear sprint cars across the whole South Bay, and, it was sprint cars were kind of a carrot for a young kid. My dad would be working on the house or something and working in the backyard. And it's like, you help me do this and you get done. We get done in time, you're going to the races. So it was like hustle, and it was kind of the carrot, a fun place to hang out, and been going there since I was, 6, 7 years old, and was a big fan. All my heroes were sprint car drivers, Dean Thompson and Eddie Worth, and Mike Sweeney.
But there's a big difference between being a fan and all of a sudden driving a car and then becoming rookie of the year. So what was the transition between the two? I mean, obviously you had wanted to, and the drive has taken you through the whole surfboarding enterprise. So what happened? I mean, how'd you end up in a car?
Well, I had friends that used to ride motorcycles. I never really, they'd take me out every once in a while, and I'd ride dirt bikes and stuff. But I had a go-kart, but it was just a real basic, Flexo go-kart. It was a real budget. It wasn't a race cart. Kind of, mini bikes, just dabbled. I really never raced anything. But, as a fan, I'd sit in the stands and I go, could I do that? Do I have the balls to do that? Is that really, I don't know if I could do that, and it later on in life as a fan, my wife, I think it was our 10th anniversary, she got me sprint car driving experience school with Corey Kruzman.
I was waiting for when you actually were getting in a car.
Yeah.
How that happened.
Yeah. So
where was this?
I was wondering if you just ponied up, bought a car and a whole team, and said, "I'm going to start driving now." Then you were introduced to the wall in turn 1. Right?
Yeah. Had some wrecks, but I have a surf shop retail store in El Segundo, and I'm going down an alley. I'm riding to my surf shop on my skateboard, and I go by this one garage that I've been going by forever, and the garage door was open. I look in there, and there's sprint car pictures on the wall, and I'm going, oh man! And this kid comes out, and I go, who owns this garage? You go, oh, that's my garage. My parents own it, and I go, who are the shots of? And they go, oh, that's my uncle, Mike Sweeney, and I go, wow. Really? And I go, gosh, could you ask your dad or mom if I could maybe copy a couple of those pictures sometime or something? He goes, yeah, whatever. He'd never seen me before. I continue skateboarding to the shop, and I walk into the shop, and my wife goes, hey, I got you something for our anniversary. And I go, what? And she goes, sprint car driving school. Right after I crossed that garage. So
there you go.
So I went up there and met Corey and did a few laps, and I go, oh man, I'm going to come back and do this. Well, I never got back. It was, I think, almost 10 years later, Corey sees my Instagram, and I'm wearing one of his shirts, and he goes, hey, we need to get you back in a car. So I go, yeah, that sounds good. So I come back out, and I start practicing, and I'm just having fun running laps. This is cool. And, I was hooked to having fun. I never dreamed of racing. I just go, oh, this is fun. I'm learning how to drive, not race, but drive a sprint car. Oh, I can handle a car. This is cool. Finally, one day, Corey puts me up on the tractor, and I'm sitting on the fender as he's ripping the track. He goes, hey, get up here, and I want to talk to you. So he's ripping the track. He's talking to me, and he's like,
explain to them what ripping the track means.
The tractor with the kind of jaws that just rip the track and open the track up after it's sealed over.
Disking it? Is that the kind of thing? More than that, huh?
Yeah, more than a little deeper.
Okay.
Yeah, because when the cars are running, they're basically flattening it and also smoothing it and grooving it.
Right.
So you want to disrupt that. And
Sure.
so they usually got just a full-on grader just pulling up. And then they roll around, depending on the track, roll trucks around or roll something around to basically even it out before the next run.
Tire,
Yeah, you could actually
tractor tire.
you could actually put rubber down on it where it seals it over. It feels like concrete almost. So what that ripper's doing is it's tearing all that up, and it's really hard because there's rubber combined in it.
Right.
And then they're tearing that, and they water it, and then you can roll it in.
So it's basically, or it's track maintenance for sprint car, for dirt track.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, continue. You're on the fender.
Okay, I'm on the fender, and Corey goes, what's one of your boards cost? He's always wanted one of my boards anyway. He goes, okay, how old are you? And I go, I'm 45. And he goes, perfect. Okay, you can run seniors. There's a senior division, 45 and over.
Nice.
Right? And he goes, I'll tell you what, you make me a board. I'll give you some practices. I'll give you this and that, and we'll have you run a race. You can run seniors. And I was like, I kind of started to spin. Like I'd been, practicing, never dreamed that how race a sprint car, how am I going to do that, And all of a sudden it was real. I'm going to race a sprint car.
Wow.
And Corey was instrumental in doing that. And Corey, I think, has been a long time ARP sponsored school driver and all that stuff.
ARP does sponsor a lot of racing, so we'll throw that out there again.
A lot of racing.
You bet.
Every kind of racing.
Yep.
Well, the bolts and all their hardware are pretty much keeping all those
industry
things together.
standard.
I mean, they are the industry standard. To me,
Sure.
they have no peer. So anyway, I throw that in there. But that's awesome. So now the first time you go out, what happens?
So I'm sitting in at Ventura. There's what they call the chute where they push cars off. Sprint cars don't have starters.
Sure.
They're direct drive.
Push drive.
Yeah, and
start.
so you're up you're out of gear, slide you up, put it in gear in the chute, and then the push truck comes up behind you and pushes you off.
Right.
So one thing I can remember is there was a slight incline, and you have to have your foot on the brake. So all I remember is my foot shaking on the brake and just trying to prevent it from rolling back. But I was nervous and stuff, and then pushed off. And my first race, I think I started as a rookie. They make you in that senior division. They make you start in the back of the pack no matter what. And
you have a little flag or tag on your back window.
And one of the things they
it's kind of the same as a short bus kind of special ed sticker.
Yep.
Always good.
Well, when I
let's the other drivers know too,
right.
to cut you a little slack and the whole thing. It's
Put a
safety.
Baby on board.
Sure.
Is that good? Okay, there you go.
Rookie on board.
So I showed up to the track and I go, "Where's my flag?" And they go, "You want a flag?" And I go, "Heck yeah, I want a flag. I mean, that's I want somebody to come up to me later or when it's time and say, hey, you don't need that anymore. That's a rite of passage. That is,
I agree.
The rookie flag is part of the experience that I wanted, and at first they didn't understand that, but then they go, okay, I get it. So that was a big deal. I wanted somebody to say, you don't need that thing anymore, and it happened.
So how'd you do?
I made it to Tech my first heat
Excellent.
race. I had a couple of guys take each other out in front of me, and I was able to avoid that wreck. And I finished in Tech, and I remember coming off the track, and if you don't go to Tech, it's a DQ. And I had no idea, it was all new to me. One of the scary things, that was the first time I'd ever been on the track with another car. So all the practice laps were solo.
Sure.
So this is the first time being.
Oh, that's a very different world.
Yeah. So that was just right into it. And
how big was the heat?
I think it was about 6 cars.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not
too bad.
No,
Not too bad. But coming off the track, they're like waving me down and making sure that I go to Tech, and stop where I was supposed to, so that I qualified in that. So it was a great experience, and the cool thing about it, the cool thing that I've been able to do is share sprint car racing with surfing world and my friends, and try to be an ambassador to the sport, so that we can keep it going. It's a pretty hard to keep going type of sport, and a kind of a dying one, unfortunately, in certain areas, especially California. There's a lot of entertainment options, close to LA, and having Ventura right here. Ventura is the best place for me. I call it my home track because you have a premier Point Break, rock, this surf spot, C Street, right next to the track. I mean, you can look over the grandstands and watch guys hang 10, and you can watch guys race sprint car.
The only track in America you can do that.
Yes, it's amazing. Wow. And to be a part of that. And my first time out, I actually got 100 people, friends and fans, to show up to support. That first time we made hats and stuff. So everybody was in a cheering section, and the track owner, Corey, was there, and track owner was like, "Who's this Tyler guy?" You know, and like, I think all these people are here for him, and so it looked, I try to bring people out, and I try to, keep things going, and just, just try to pass it on.
But the track is very close to the Bat Cave here. We're very, very close to that track right now.
The original Bat Cave?
No, this Bat Cave.
Oh, this Bat Cave.
The undisclosed secret,
Our Bat Cave.
top secret filming location. It's extremely close to the Ventura racetrack.
Nice. Which is always fun.
I suggest you go there now.
I used to do karting there.
Soon.
The kart track that was right here. I don't even know whether it's still there or not. The go-kart track.
Yeah.
I used to go there all the time. In fact, been upside down there. It's good. So yeah, but okay. So you had your first race, this heat race, but things have like really gotten big from there. I mean, you are just to throw it out there, so you don't have to say this about yourself, because we never like talking about ourselves. But anyway, the bottom line is Rookie of the Year for 2022, and you won the race. You finished high enough in the last race to pass the guy that you were 1 point behind, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. Joey Bishop,
yes.
Not the singer, but anyway. But yeah, no, that's an amazing deal that you came up and were able to pass this guy in the points and finish. What happened in the last race? What was the saga that happened in that last race that got you enough points?
Well, I just I qualified 8th, which out of I think there was 25 cars or something.
That's impressive.
So 8th was a good qualifying. That was my best one of the year. Of course, being consistent all year. Back to when I was running seniors, it was like, okay, this is cool. I'm going to do seniors, and then the drug addiction that I've never experienced, kicked in, and I was like, okay, I won my first race in less than a year in the senior division. And people are going, hey, you better appreciate this. There's people that don't even win heat races their whole, that come out here and do this their whole career. And It's a pretty big deal, so enjoy it. And then it just I kept feeding that. I was able to parlay some of my, my surfing connections, because I was also pro surfing and stuff too. I was able to kind of get those people to come on board to sponsor, because there's no way my business doesn't make. I wish it did. I wish it was Tyler Surfboards was the sponsor full blown.
Is that the sponsor we're talking about there?
Yeah, the Zarp Excavation and a couple other sponsors along the way. But
so we'd like to thank our sponsor ARP and ARP-bolts.com. And we all three build cars. We all work on this stuff. And
I tinker.
You tinker.
I tinker.
Yes, we all build.
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of a really cool multiple purpose fastener for me, because there's all the science and all the technology, which is bottomless. Trust me. Unbelievable amount of research that they put into these things.
Absolutely.
And on top of it, you get them out of the package, and they're absolutely beautiful, which I've joked before. It's like jewelry for your car. And when
pre-oiled.
we're building when we're building a high-end car, there isn't anything else going on it. It's part of the criteria for me to have them lining the engine bay, not just on the engine, everywhere.
Yeah. Right.
So you get all the strength, the durability, the reliability, and fantastic good looks.
Sure.
Kind of like Jeff here.
And without peer. Without peer.
And you know what?
Or paired.
Without peer, there's nobody else that does what they do.
It is. So check them out at arp-bolts.com, and they can help you out. So we'd like to thank our friends at allamerican.com. They make some fantastic suspension pieces, coilover shock conversions. We put one on my Chevelle. Outstanding little piece of operation.
I just did a story on an El Camino.
And on El Camino, that's right.
And it's running a hot rod. Look at that.
Yeah. So, and then I think there's a little promo.
There's a promo code, CarGuy10. So when you're online, put in CarGuy10, and you will get 10% off.
Look at that.
Well, that's not bad.
And we don't expect you to send any part of that back to us.
No.
So I think we should really push that, right?
Absolutely.
So you're on your own.
Some.
You're on your own. So thanks again to allamerican.com, and check them out.
not to put anybody down in the seniors division, I was racing it with some of like Wally Pankratz, one of the legends of our sport, like a guy that I used to watch as a kid, I was racing with now. He'd come into my trailer afterwards and critique our session on the track. And I was just like priceless stuff. Like I never dreamed that those people would be my friends, just like in surfing. Like surfing legends became good friends of mine. And now in the racing world, I have really good friends.
And you finished 5th overall?
5th overall.
5th overall, right?
Yeah, for the season and Rookie of the Year.
Wow, that's amazing. Very impressive. You should be proud of that. So you're going to go on from here, I presume?
Yeah.
More racing next year?
You know, I started, we talked about the hot rods and stuff that I had that, was at the piggy bank. And, well, I kind of pedaled a few of those and now put it in the racing, which it just goes up in smoke. So, which is sad.
You mentioned you have a lot of background. You had a lot of background in sprint cars and such, or just a big fan, or what?
Just a lot of watching and being around. And I've been involved in a bunch of different motorsports, but just fan hanging out and watching for sprint car. Since moving out here from New York, I would either be here at this track, which I call my home track also, but also going down to Perris, a little higher speeds down there, and would enjoy that also. But yeah, this is a smaller track, but a lot of fun. A lot of family feel at this track.
You should talk to Tyler's wife. Maybe she'll get you an experience, and you can become a race car driver.
No,
she's still around. Okay, but anyway.
Well, it's she's still around. You know what? Being involved with racing, that's a very legit question.
That's kind of where I was going, but there you go.
Well, there's joke. How do you have $1 million race team? You start with 10 million, and then you lose the 9, and
go on from there.
Yeah, well, I've been involved with that. I've sponsored a couple of AA fuel nostalgia funny cars, and so I literally watched my money burn. I bought the nitromethane, so I watched it just go. Yeah. Very quickly.
That's a good point. Are you still doing some of that?
I'm not doing it right now.
Yeah.
My main boy driver Garrett Bateman is still in A fuel dragster right now, and just ran up at Pomona. Unfortunately, didn't win, but cut one of the fastest times he has in the car so far. So excited for him. But
which car is that? Which one?
He runs. What's the new sponsor? Right now, if they're watching, they're like, good Lord, Clean Boost is the main title sponsor on his A-Fuel dragster. So he runs unblown on nitro, but he'll run against the same and blown on alcohol dragster. Basically, there's two groups in one. So, and he's been doing it for a long time. Car owner is Rick Hinkleman, who had owned a AA fuel big show car a few years back. So good team, good people on it. But I haven't thrown any money at it lately. But if he calls up and tells me he's doing another nostalgia funny car, then I like that. I like doing that a lot because the cars look like the ones that I idolized when I was a kid. And when I first got involved with that, I went up to Bakersfield for one of the March meets, and the first time I was with the team running, and I'm standing on that track, and that I'm squatted down and, wipe the tires down, and he's going to go do a run, and it's night. So you got all the nitro flames, and you look at the cars, and they're the same. You're transported back. It might as well be 1971 at Bakersfield. It's the same stance. It's the same tower. It's the same looking cars, so that's a lot of fun. That thing just digs, and I like that. So, but anyway, I'm a fan of all forms of racing, and was very fortunate in my area. I had a small NASCAR dirt and asphalt tracks, Shangri-La, 5 Mile Point, and then I also had about 45 minutes away was a very famous road course, Watkins Glen, then go down south a little bit for open wheel racing at Poconos, and then drag racing. I had English Town in Jersey, and how did my brain Pennsylvania, Maple Grove.
Yes.
And for dirt bike riding, because I did that too, we had a big famous track called Unadilla, Thrill at Unadilla. So I had plenty of great, multiple different kinds of racing going on very close to home. And then probably 5.5 miles away from me was a motorcycle speedway track. And you said something earlier that it actually hit home to me when you could hear Ascot running. At my house, where I'm in a small farm town called Appalachian, and I could actually hear the big block feature at the track down in Owego, which is the neighboring track. I could hear them from from our porch.
Yeah.
And I remember that feeling of just wanting to be there and hearing it.
It's calling out to you.
Yeah, it was that definitely struck a chord with me when you said that, because I parallel that.
Yeah.
You know, I remember hearing and wanting to be close by that. And I had a couple of neighbors that had just, gas welded, square roll barred, 71 Malibus that would run street stock with 2 barrels. And, they literally had a school bus with the doors off the back and pieces of wood, and they drove the car up into the school bus. That was their transporter. So I was around a lot of grassroots racing of all sorts. So, and I think that's one reason why I like the Ventura track. It gives me that feeling too. It's not a mega super speedway. Perris is beautiful and amazing and just a gorgeous track and the whole setup, but it also has that kind of almost polished corporate feel, which is great. I mean, it's a beautiful track, and they get hauling ass down there. But this track, you just walk, you go up, and you can tell everybody that's there is the same people there every week, and very family feeling at the track. And yeah, on the other side is just the waves, which is real cool. So
yeah, I like the tracks that are like, it reminds you of like a little league field.
Sure.
Where you have a snack bar.
Yeah.
And you have string lights.
Yep.
And the national anthem is played on a record player with the pops and the skips and through a crummy little speaker.
It definitely has a lot of warm feeling up at that track, and that's why I like going there too. It's a cool hang.
I used to love going to Saugus, but I also used to go to Englishtown. That was my track when I lived in New Jersey. That was
Englishtown's
an awesome,
a good track.
And it was that sound that you could hear from ways away that caused Englishtown to get in trouble, because all those people moved in close to it. And it's like, surprise, there's a racetrack here. So it's that same old crap. But in California, you can even move El Toro, because El Toro is a nuisance for the folks in Orange County. So there's no win. If El Toro moves because of sound, then we have no chance.
Well, Pomona fights that, of course.
Oh, all the time. They have, if I remember the research, they have like 12 days a year they can run, period.
Yeah, which is
That's
ridiculous
That's
for an extremely historical, famous track.
I did want to mention, you've got on your Instagram post, there's your Instagram post is Tyler Surfboards, and you also have Tyler Hatzikian Racing. Okay, very good. Thank you for that help. Sure. You have that, and there's a mention of problems that are at Perris Raceway, Perris Auto Speedway, I should say.
Yeah, Perris.
So what's going on there, just so we can get the word out a little bit?
Well, they're having this issue. The state is coming in.
Perris is?
Yeah.
This is the track I've been mentioning.
Yeah.
What's happening?
So there's an issue with this water project that they're doing, and it's not that it's on their property, but it's next to their property, and it would affect having any events there. So when this popped up, they were supposed to get back to Perris with some sort of a package for them to deal with it, like a payout, and from what I gather,
the track is affecting a waterway in some fashion.
Some sort of project, some water project, and
what's it disrupting the 3 Brazilian tree frogs that happen to be there? Or?
Yeah, it's. Do you
know them?
Yeah, all 3. Manny, Mo, and Jack, the Brazilian tree frogs that live near the Perris Raceway.
There's Giselle. Sorry, that's different Brazilian.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. But go ahead. Please.
I'm wondering if it's real or if it's some,
Right.
I'm going to make enemies really quickly, so I'll just back off. But
please.
Make some enemies? Is it a bunch of tree hugging nonsense, or is it legitimate?
I don't know. I don't have all the details. I just know as somebody who races there and who's been involved as a driver, and Don Kazarian, track owner, he has a lease for like 10 to 15 more years there. He's there. Yeah. He's set.
Sure.
So there was supposed to be.
And that's not a $5 freaking piece of real estate.
No.
That's a big facility.
Yeah, and when we first started going there, I think it opened up in '96. There was nothing out there.
Yeah,
you know,
of course not.
off the 215, and now there's just like everything else. It's there's these tilt ups and stuff encroaching on
Let's
it.
move nearby and then make them close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's fair.
Yeah. So it's just like moving to El Segundo, my hometown, and wanting them to move the airport, LAX. It's, Kazarian, I guess, has been fighting this and has gone to court. He's won 2 different times.
So who is he fighting? Is it the state?
That's where
It's going to get scary. Is if the big boys are going to start playing.
So these 2 wins in court, basically have
2 wins for Perris.
No,
2
I
wins for
understand.
Perris.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Has pushed it to where all these different government agencies, state agencies, are coming in and going, open that broom closet, and taking the measurements.
In other words, they're lying.
They're squeezing them.
No, lying.
Yeah. So, unfortunately,
Back home we call that making shit up.
yeah. So it's a real big deal. He's been trying to get everybody to call the governor and leave a message about saving Perris Auto Speedway.
Yeah, that's going to go far.
Yeah.
The guy who doesn't want gasoline engines in the state.
Yeah. So it's kind of a bummer. I moved just recently in the last year. I moved close to 20 minutes from the track, and to have it go away would really suck.
That'd be horrible. That'd be horrible. I thought initially it said "Save Ferris," which reminded me of a movie. So, but it's not. Yeah, no.
Ferris that's
Bueller?
a band. Not Ferris Bueller. There's a band
Ferris
called.
Bueller. Save Ferris. Okay, you have so much more. You have so much more background than I do. So that's amazing. Anyway. So in this case, is there anything anybody can do with regards to this operation?
Get a hold of our lousy idiot governor. Get a hold of our governor.
You can just leave a message and just say, "Hey, I'm calling to say, would like the governor to save Perris Auto Speedway."
And we'll put it up on our screen, so we'll have it on our deal.
Cool.
But I thank you for being here. Yeah. Looks like we're gonna have to wrap it up here. But this has been terrific, and really appreciate you coming on, Tyler.
I enjoy
Thank you, guys.
Stories of surfboards, 55 Chevys, and racing. So it's all good with me.
Check.
Good.
Check this. Check that box.
Guys, all good.
And we also want to say hi to Jeff. And Jeff,
hi, Jeff.
We'll see you again. Hopefully the next time, Jeff Smith of our Jeff Smith. And I want to thank
ARP-bolts.com.
That's right, and all the folks at ARP. And
I don't think I've ever said that on air yet.
And you did an awesome job.
I did.
You did the best I have ever heard.
Yeah.
I'll have to practice it. Just watching yours again.
Yeah,
so
that's
there we
what
go.
we're going to do.
Very good. Excellent. Well, thank you again for watching Car Guy Confessions, and we'll see you next time.